Hello, beautiful sunshines. Welcome to Now That's Love.
With your favorite mother-daughter duo, Ashlyn and
Janae where you get to know thyself, love thyself, and become the best version of self.
Because the greatest love story that you are ever going to tell is the one you create with yourself every day. I'm fairly good on this pistol. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
We are back at you with Now That's Love. So today we are going to be talking about how do I know I'm addicted to self-healing. And I think this is something that we don't really recognize within ourselves, why it's happening. We just kind of start finding ourselves isolating or always buying the next new book and just always wanting more. First of all, we want to mention that healing, dark shadow work, working on our triggers, like we mentioned in the 5 previous podcasts, they are essential. They are amazing. You need to do it. You need to find where you need certain direction in your life to be able to progress and grow in your journey. But if you catch yourself doing a couple of these things of find a book, are you bringing action to what you're doing? Are you catching yourself with the numbing out and the excuses and staying in your victimhood? It's all about growth instead. So the core of emotional healing is to trust ourselves again in this work.
Yeah, so a lot of spiritual awakening comes out of suffering. So something big has happened in your life, and it might be a death, it might be getting divorced, or for me personally, it was getting divorced and just out of a narcissistic abusive relationship. There's a trauma bond and different things there. And so maybe you've even been cheated on and different things. So there's this core of like not trusting yourself, because with a trauma bond, there's something going on in your brain that makes you feel like you can't trust yourself to not go back to that person because they're so incessant in trying to get you back in those kind of relationships. And even when you don't feel like you have the control of somebody passing away, so all of a sudden you're not trusting life anymore because something might happen. So it's coming back within to yourself and learning that compassion, self-love, and trusting. And so when you're doing this self-help journey, what I have found to be the most effective is journaling and seeing the self-reflection. Is this helping me? I just read this book, or I just watched this video, and I want to implement this into my life and see if it works. Instead of just like a yo-yo diet, jumping from this book to that book. Yeah, it's like a dopamine hit that you get, but then you wake up in the morning and you feel worse or you feel less than. And
it doesn't, whenever that happens too, you start to isolate because you don't feel worthy of enough.
So you really become isolated. Like, maybe I'm such a mess. I'm so broken that I shouldn't be around people right now. I have so much work to do.
Or you get around people and you start feeling triggered because you're like, oh my gosh, I need to go back into my cocoon and work on this because this is totally too much.
Really. And what you really do need is actually really loving connections, a community, being okay with being authentically yourself as you're walking through this, and recognizing that you are stepping out of the victim story. And some people I've worked with, I've asked this question, and I've asked it to myself, is if you stay in the victim story, what is it serving you? And if you lost the victim story, would you know who you were? Because if you've been a victim for a lot of different things in your life, all of a sudden you don't have that story anymore. Who are you? It's okay to kind of remold and invent yourself, do a reinvention and say, like, in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, let me reintroduce myself. That's very powerful. Like, I'm going to just reintroduce myself. And when Ashley and I talked about probably about 10, maybe 15 episodes, that when we were evolving so fast, it was like taking us by a whirlwind. So many things, we were taking action steps. I'm like, my gosh, this works. This is amazing. By Friday, I was like, I don't really even know my past self, because so many emotional triggers and different things were gone. They just, yeah, I experienced this, but I'm not triggered by it anymore. And we loved that part, but there was a part of my life that I did isolate big
It
time.
wraps into like the ego as
Yeah.
well with what you were saying of the excuse to avoid not feeling enough and only focusing on ourselves.
Yeah.
We started, well, at least for me, I know that we both felt this way.
Yeah.
But
You can get consumed there.
Ended up feeling like that superiority in a way, like we mentioned in our ego podcast, that, oh my gosh, we're just growing so fast and we're just moving so quick. And
what's wrong with y'all?
Why aren't you on our level, you know?
Right.
And it's just an egoic thing. And on top of that, too, it was the perfectionist in us that was expecting perfection out of other people to do those things. And we weren't near as perfect, you know?
Breaking
never be.
Breaking up with that avatar, you start to really get to know yourself through the self-help journey. The addiction part will come that, you know, it feels good to get out of the achy suffering, and you are getting that little dopamine hit. I remember, I think there was one day I ordered 11 books and they were delivered, and I was like, oh my gosh, where do I even start? It was a process and in time. Mm-hmm. And I realized, okay, I need to slow down. And I really like the New Earth from Eckhart Tolle and Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and a couple others were very instrumental, and I could have just stayed there and just kept on evolving with that. Mm-hmm. And I still read Eckhart Tolle literally on a weekly basis. It's such a peaceful place.
Like I started getting hard on myself though during that time that I wasn't perfect compared to those books. They were like, be in the moment, and the second I'm not in the moment, I became addicted to not. There's that healing factor.
There's a real true factor of like when you read the book of being just self-aware, like I'm self-aware, but then you can get to the point that you're so supercharged self-aware that you're nitpicking yourself. Uh-huh. And you're like, well, why am I thinking this thought? Well, let's go down this road. I'm thinking this thought because it's probably when I was 3 years old. It takes away your joy. And the one thing that I really have learned over the last 6 months, and especially within this last month, it's been my action step is as I'm living within my spirit consciousness, I know that there's three main things that I should be feeling. And it's either going to be at peace just with what is. It's going to be a loving energy. It's going to be, you know what, I can love this. I can appreciate what this message is bringing to me, or also joy. And I realized reflecting over the last 4 years, for me, this is being so raw, that I was really lacking in the sprinkles of joy. Yeah, I had gotten so consumed with the self-help and really got into a place of I need to do more. And so I pulled back about 6 months ago. I've got to sprinkle in the appreciation. A brief interruption of this podcast to introduce.
Are you looking for something that not only looks beautiful, but feels meaningful? Welcome to Now That's Love on Etsy, where we uniquely create every item as a reminder to breathe, to pause, and embrace self-love.
From an array of fashion selections to calming home accents, these pieces are designed to be anchors in your life. Anchors that help you stay grounded in the present moment, triggering those little sparks of self-love, joy, and mindfulness.
Want even more? Follow us on Instagram at Now That's Love for exclusive sales, special promotions, and behind the scenes content that brings you closer to the heart of our creations. You won't want to miss out.
So, whether you're gifting a little love to yourself or someone special, remember, life is all about those small, meaningful, loving moments. And Now That's Love is here to help you. Visit us on Etsy today. Your anchor to self-love is just a click away.
Check out the link in the description below to visit our Etsy shop.
For myself of how far I've come, I've really got to sprinkle in the joy. I've got to sprinkle in all these wonderful, beautiful things. And so that I can't stress enough. We're teaching you guys from things that I wish I would have learned sooner. And that is, where's your joy each day?
Yeah, ask yourself if it's truly bringing you happiness and where you are, what you are doing. Whether that is you reading that book about self help, are you doing the dark shadow work? Yeah, not all the time dark shadow work is going to be, oh, I'm so happy in this moment. But are you doing that 24/7? And if it is bringing you joy? Those are two questions you really have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And this is a journey.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey of getting to know yourself. What do you really truly love? What do you appreciate about yourself? Where are those little things that might pop in? You're only going to experience them getting out and being around people and trusting yourself and feeling safe
and feeling like you are enough in that moment. That
every
right
moment. Like
you don't need to be healed to be worthy.
We
that's
cannot.
Something I had to realize for myself.
Yeah, we cannot stress that enough. You are enough right now. You are enough just as you are right now. It's called growing. It's a growth mindset. So you're going to grow. That's what our spirits came down here, I believe, to keep on growing and experience a human earth life. And so you're going to continuously grow. So just if you have a growth mindset, it kind of pulls you out of depression. It pulls you out of that anxiety. And you also will start to find that you're having a lot more joy. You'll have a lot more love in your life. And there's immense peace in that. Like, listen, I'm just doing my best. And I feel like I am growing today, one day at a time. A lot of times our brains can only handle just one day at a time if you've gone through a lot of stuff. So just one day at a time, this is my day. Like I might have my week written out, but it can totally change
on a dime sometimes.
And I'm okay with that. Yeah. And I think that when you first step out of abuse or you first step out of that dark night of the soul, you can bring in that fun too. Then don't feel like you can't, because even your overthinking mind, you can call it like mine's Fifi and hers is Coco. You can kind of smile at that, right? Oh my gosh, Fifi is out of control.
It's the creativity and fun that you bring into these things where you're singing, like some of the greatest artwork and music was created during an immense amount of pain. So don't think that I'm in pain right now and all I can do is heal. There's sing, paint, dance, cook, dance, go underneath the moon and be a child.
What did you do as a child? Get on a bike, go out in nature, get your hands grubby in the dirt, go buy some plants, make a little cute garden.
I think we forgot about the joy.
We forgot about the joy. And if we can just stress that, like bring it to you guys, to start adding the joy in.
Bring the light back into your life. And then
don't waste 6 months, a year to all of a sudden realize, you know what, I haven't brought joy in, because you're searching for that peace where you can only have it in the moment.
Bring that in with other people too, and create that community. You have so much. You went through that thing, the dark shadow, that terrible relationship, whatever. You went through that, so you can share that wisdom. Don't keep it cocooned in and think, well, I am not healed. I'm not perfect. I'm not wonderful in who I am right now.
You are, though.
Because you have so much wisdom to back up.
You do.
And if me and you were just like started this podcast and we're like, well, we're not fully healed yet, like we wouldn't have so many beautiful messages to share with y'all.
No, I literally was walking out of my turmoil in the darkest night of my soul and having women come up to me and ask me questions. And I had just learned certain things and was able to give them wisdom because other people were sharing their wisdom. Mm-hmm. And so it's all of us as a collective sharing and coming together. And if they wouldn't have shown up and shared their wisdom for what they were going through, maybe they were only 6 months ahead of me, a year ahead of me, of learning certain things that really worked. And then I was sharing, and then these women went out and shared with their daughters and with people that they were working with. It just becomes this domino effect of sharing and loving on each other.
As women, I feel like as women, we bond so much more through connections and sharing our feelings, and healing as a community can bring so much empowerment.
Right.
That's why we wanted to create this community as well, is because we were each other's community during that time. It was just us two. And I was could you imagine if there was 50 other women that we could bring in and be like, hey, we've gone through that. We've felt this. And we can heal as a community, not making it an obsession of self-healing, but facing our feelings and going through that work, but also finding those sparks of joy during that time of laughter. And we sat back probably about, I think about a month ago, me and you, I think we both got really real with ourselves, just in many aspects of our lives.
Very real.
Very real. and noticing the numbing out and looking at each other. And I actually started crying. Oh my gosh, I started crying the other day. I was telling Jerome, I was at lunch on a lunch break with my friend at work, and I was laughing so hard with her. And I came home and I told my husband, I was like, I haven't laughed.
It's been a minute.
Like that. Like, and I'm talking like not even thinking about how dorky or loud your laugh is. Like you're slapping your knees. You're just having so much fun. And I realized, oh my gosh,
bringing it back.
I'm finally finding those friendships too that we're just like bonding and clicking and just authentically ourselves, which you should be always your authentic self, but we honor each other's authentic selves. And then whenever me and you were making our fun commercial, that's finally, I'm telling you, I literally peed my pants. I had to go and get changed.
We were laughing so hard.
That's when me and you clicked in our brains.
Right.
We want y'all to see the joy. And yes, we talked a lot about the dark shadow and some dark stuff in the first 30 podcasts, but now we're bringing the light and joy into our podcast of like, oh, like, this is authentically us. We're goofballs. Like
massive goofballs. We make
fun of ourselves so
laughing
much.
Every single day. That was our authentic self. It's just like laughing about a lot of things and not letting the system of what's outside of us weigh us down, because we are living in a diverse world right now. There's a lot of things going on, and being very selective of what we're like listening to on the radio, being very selective of what we're watching. I mean, if you need to shift, go watch a comedy. If you need to shift, go back to your little girls, your teenage self songs that literally just made you happy. Or maybe the songs when you're a little girl that you had really a bonding relationship with, maybe your sister, your brother, and you were listening to these kind of music. It takes you to that place.
And I feel like too, I got stuck in the fact that I was healing so much, especially from my friend passing away, that I almost kind of had this guilt of having happiness behind things and laughing with another friend. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. Like, just because I went through that, she's probably so happy I found somebody that we match, and I'm laughing so hard with this person. And I don't have that guilt behind that. And finding that again within myself after 4 years, sometimes I would like obviously laugh with my friends and have a great time. I've loved the past 4 years of my journey and growth. But that moment, it was like a staple for me. And I think just this month has been a staple for me of the no more numbing out, of the joy, and just the pure laughter of my creativity coming forward with everything that we are doing.
Well, and sitting back for me is, I've really become self-aware. On Sunday, I thought, okay, if this is my last day to live, how am I serving? How am I loving on people? How am I loving on myself? I kind of ask these questions. And I really love elderly people. I love talking to them. So I got in my car, I put in an elderly living center near me. I drove to this place. I got on their helpers list.
That's awesome.
And that made me feel so fulfilled to take that action step. I called several family members, reached out, and I went visited a friend. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep on flowing like this, and I laughed a lot. And I was like, what else do I want to do? Like, what do I want special time for myself?
And I love that you asked yourself those questions, because you're really getting in tune with what is bringing you happiness. You're not focusing necessarily on the codependency of like, oh, I need to call this person. It's like you're calling those people because you're like, let's form connection. Let's
and in the shower every morning, I say to my spirit, I'm like, creative one, what do you want to experience today? What way can we show up in other people's lives that is meaningful? What way would you like to love on ourselves today and spread that love? I start asking questions, and something that I'm going to be sharing in one of my episodes that's coming up is spiritual fitness. But there's some really profound ways to trigger your brain to answer questions that will make your mind start to look and reach out for those things. It's a very deep healing process, but it's even more powerful than affirmations. And I'll be sharing that in their next episode.
Yeah. And I think it's great to analyze where we are at and self-reflect, because I think
Yeah.
You can become a ghost of your own dark shadow.
You can.
And there's just so many things that come along with it. And if you catch yourself doing this, again, like we've mentioned in so many podcasts, you're worthy, you're enough. You don't
Right.
need to keep filling up on these books. And if you are, really like bring action into it.
Right.
And not having those excuses of not wanting to bring your light out into this world. And that's something that I've done so often whenever I was healing, where I really felt like I had to keep myself in a container because I wasn't worthy of certain relationships or money, or even just, I think that I numbed out on those things to avoid other situations, such as with money or with relationships. It's like you see these relationships outside of you sometimes, and it was this avoidance of not wanting to face them, not wanting to face myself. It just a full spectrum.
It is.
And then once you finally see, oh my gosh, I was a tad bit addicted to healing. And
Tad.
just a tad. And now that we're facing our feelings and seeing things, wow, has it made us go through another dark night of the soul.
It did.
Because you don't think, oh, well, I've read all these books and I've had everything figured out and I know what I'm doing. And yeah, it was a cannonball.
The thing that came down so beautifully was you can have it all in the moment in all the areas of your life with a growth mindset. Just every day, I'm just trying to do a little bit better today, and I am enough. And my inner wisdom is like a lightning bolt and will tell me and keep me safe and take care of me. I just have to just take that moment. So meditative prayer, journaling. I have found so much about myself in journaling. I'm like, wow, I open it up. I'm like, this is a repeat pattern. Or, well, I think I need to really sit back for a moment and appreciate how far I've come.
Yeah.
This is pretty freaking amazing. And I don't need anybody else to come and show up and say, wow,
Yeah.
Janae, that's so amazing. I can do it for myself.
That's true.
So just having that beautiful growth mindset and just taking it as your inner wisdom of knowing that you can have the answers.
I completely agree. Now, go ahead.
The thing that is coming to me is that as you pick your books, your courses, different things, there were things that just kind of landed. I'd say a prayer and then they would land on
Divinely
me.
given.
And this book really, truly, I was one on narcissistic abuse, the quantum healing of it. There were 10 lessons in this book. And I took everyone, like, here's lesson one. When I'm done with it, how do I feel? Do I feel like I need to go back over it? And I really took my time with it, but it was a stepping stone into understanding about codependency. And
clicking for me is you mentioned something about some people treating courses and these self-help books and podcasts as diets of, I'm going to get that dopamine rush. I'm going to do it. I'm going to lose those 5 pounds. And then I'm going to gain the 5 pounds back and I'm not going to learn anything. And then I'll go back into another self-help course and you're just never completing it.
So say that you're on Instagram and there's a lot of wonderful self-help people out there. They're just beautiful souls. Going within yourself and saying what is needed, what would be the best for me? And going there, because like the diet thing, you can do the keto diet, then you're on the paleo diet, then you're doing this diet, and you can find that nothing's really truly working for you. And that's why I said, once again, journaling and meditation, what is working and what has truly helped you. I could tell you right now exactly what has helped me, the books that have helped me, the certain souls out there that have been so impactful for my life. And that was something I was shown that Ashlyn and I would be doing, would be like, listen, you went through the mess. Now you've got to share your message and you're paying to your promise. Like you promised, I felt like our souls had promised, and everybody goes through suffering experiences. Yes. So this is not just Ashlyn's and my journey. Like you've gone through your pain. It's almost like your soul made a promise that it was going to share. Yeah. Like that's your purpose. And so this is a loving community. We want you to feel loved. We want you to know for a fact, feel it within your bones, within your soul, that you are enough. You are enough. Self-help can be looked at as a growth mindset that you're just growing into your most beautiful self as your soul. Your soul's just asking for spiritual evolution and mind freedom and the peace of mind. Your body heals through self-help. You're getting rid of all this.
It's essential to do, especially after you
It
have
is.
left those relationships,
Right.
to find those triggers so you're not bringing them out in a negative way into the world and harming yourself, like we've mentioned trillions of times, through stress, and your health can be so much impacted by these things.
Your health can be so impacted. And that's probably part of my biggest part in my mind journey right now is I want to make sure I'm taking care of my health. And that is spiritual fitness, that's physical fitness, that's mental fitness, that's emotional
All
fitness.
the realms.
But having fun, like we said,
Yeah.
doing it in a loving way. I mean, your own best friend. You're your own best friend.
Yeah.
And so
your greatest love story.
Have fun. If you want your best friend to show up and be funny and goofy, maybe, and bring on the fun each day, just a little bit.
Life doesn't have to be so serious. Oh my
gosh.
Yeah. So go back and ask yourself those questions that we mentioned in the beginning of your self-isolation, and are you bringing these self-help tips with your courses that you're doing or books or podcasts? Are you bringing those to action? And are you trying to heal 24/7? So ask yourself truly those questions. If it's coming from the ego of just focusing on the constant battle of your internal self of perfectionism. I've mentioned that in my solo podcast on episode 33, where it was the constant perfectionist of not being enough. And once I was able to just chill out, I love it because we have a t-shirt called Stop Trippin'. And I love that shirt because I'm going to buy that shirt and you're going to see me wear it because that is literally how I feel. Stop tripping, have fun, relax, let go, be yourself and love yourself. Yeah. I mean, that's why this podcast was created, was self-love.
Know thyself, love thyself, and become the best version of self, the growth mindset. We also have a really cute shirt that says, I am enough. And it has a cute little heart on it. But I want to look at it. It's so peaceful and so sweet. And
those things are just great anchors to be able to have and wear. And it just brings back that reminder for myself that life is not supposed to be taken so seriously. It's honestly, my husband and I always, whenever life gets so serious, me and him are like, this is some big joke. Obviously, life has consequences to your actions and you do have to own up to it and not numb out on it. But if you think about it, it's just have fun in your everyday trials. Like you said, you don't know when tomorrow is going to be given, and just have fun and not dim yourself on what you are whenever you are trying to heal. That's what I think I was doing.
Right. And you have all that you ever needed to walk through and learn and be your very best self in every single moment. You know what? I want to learn this. This sounds really good. I feel like this would really help me with this. And then taking the action on it. Then you have your own confirmation. This living in the present moment really does make a difference. Or getting to bed early at night, when they speak about that for self-help and getting that 7-8 hours of sleep, it's making a huge difference. Okay, eating this way makes a difference. What's making a difference for the positive in your life, and taking note of it, and then having to become your norm. Like I said, I really like the philosophy of having the visual of having to walk up to your friends and say, hey, let me reintroduce myself by the end of the month. It's not like you're addicted to self-helping. It's just what's working for you? What's working for you in your career? What's working for you in your love life? What's working for you in your connections with your family?
And having those friendships and family members too that see that you're not the same person that you were a year ago. And if they're holding you to that and they liked that person better, you probably need to go back onto our boundaries podcast and start recognizing that those people liked you whenever you were at that state. But now that you've grown, it might be time to shed. Just like a snake, sometimes it's time to shed your skin a little bit.
And they'll catch up in loving you the way you are if they're meant to be still in your life. If not, then that's okay too, because it's the evolution of the soul that is imperative. And you will feel depressed and sad and stuck if you don't continually feel like you're growing in some way or another on a daily basis, even if it's just the littlest thing. That I think the book, The Atomic Habits, it's the little things that we start to take action on that we really truly desire, just the little steps. It's not the person that goes and works out 5 hours a day or even an hour a day and then quits it 2 weeks. It's the person that says, hey, I'm just going to walk into the gym and do 10 minutes.
Love
and
it.
then 3 weeks later, 20 minutes. And then by the end of the year, they're where they wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so proud of themselves. It's the little steps we do for ourselves, even if it's like the loving in the mirror.
It's like the turtle and the hare. It's the
Yeah.
hare ended up, or the turtle ended up winning the race because they took the gradual steps. They were actually taking their time to get where they needed to be because that was meant for them. Sometimes one of your friends might read a book and be like, I've grasped this, I got it. And then you might read the book and be like, I might need to read this a couple times and take some notes. And
That's
we're
okay.
all different learners.
We're all different learners. And one thing that you can do to start to encourage yourself along your path is, I know it's from Brene Brown. She shared this and I started to do it. It's really fun. But one thing with our brain is that when we give each other 5, our brain, from being little kids, it's instantly like, congratulations, you're a little bad, but like you accomplished something.
And it's kind of hard not to cheese, like smile
Right.
really hard when that
So
happens.
do it to yourself before you leave the bathroom in the morning. Give yourself 5, like, you know what? Hey, you're doing your best.
Bring the fun into the day.
Start out that energy in the day. And then I add in, like, I love you a little bit more today. Or, you know what? I'm really grateful for all you're doing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I do that on a daily basis. And I can kind of do a check-in. Do we really ever look at ourselves in the eyes? When you're looking in the mirror and you're saying, I love you, are you really looking in your own eyes? Or do we just like instantly look in the mirror each day and just see what's wrong with our bodies, or the bags under our eyes, or my hair's falling out, or whatever it is we want to say? I'm just saying this as like a self-help, but your first little atomic habit of doing this shift work, of feeling like you've accomplished something each and every single day, is just starting out with that little high five and I love you in the mirror. That's starting your day off in the right direction to hear yourself and what your spirit desires.
And I'm glad that we're talking about this too, because if I would have been given this along the process of working on my dark shadows and stuff, I would have not been so hard on myself. So that's why I wanted to give this to y'all now.
Yeah.
So you're not like, we're not 100 episodes in and be like, by the way, are you addicted to self-healing?
No.
This is an essential episode just to analyze yourself, take a pause with yourself today, be in the moment, have joy in your life, laugh, love. This is what this world was created on. Like you mentioned, the peace, love, and joy. And if you're not finding that in your daily life, that's when you need to step back and find the present moment, because I've had to do that with myself. Even creating this business with you, I've found so much love and joy. But in the beginning, I was like perfectionism and making sure everything was perfect. And I started stressing out because I had guilt with not having time with my son. And then I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Stepped back, both of us.
And you be in the present moment with everything, whatever you're doing right now, whatever your task is for the week, be in that moment with it. So whenever I'm designing things or being in my creative state, I'm in the moment with that creative state.
We have had so much fun.
With my son, I'm in the present moment with my son. He can feel it. He feels my energy. He feels my attraction. When I'm with my husband, we're having a genuine, deep, fun conversation. We
cannot say this enough. Like our own evolution, where you're literally witnessing us talking here on the things that we're growing out of and growing into. And you might see us in a month be going like, hey, let us reintroduce ourselves, because
which we will do.
We are evolving. And I just found that to really truly pull yourself out of depression and the anxious state or the fear state, that it's just growth. Even if you want your growth that day is like, listen, it's just going to be a self-care, self-love day. That's my growth. It's going to be growing within myself and loving on myself. This is going to be a self-love grow day.
I love that you mentioned that, because that's one thing I've really realized. Just because you're not necessarily doing something, resting is doing. Your body needs rest. And we're going to mention this in the next podcast. Just how, especially as us women, we follow the moon cycle, and it is so essential to get that rest. And there's going to be moments in your month where you're like, I'm so driven, I can do anything, I can accomplish everything. And then you're going to have moments where you do feel like you need a break and you need to rest.
And it's okay,
we're
you
not
guys.
in that 24/7 cycle.
It's okay.
Like men.
That was such a cycle for me to break in my mind.
Same.
Because I would sit down and think, especially as an entrepreneur for so many years, my mind would instantly go to, well, you could be doing this, or you probably should be doing this. And it's really been a breakup
from childhood trauma, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, and being that mom that can be present with her children and sit down and like have a conversation, and like they want to play a game, they want to watch a movie. You're like, okay, in the big picture of everything, this takes precedence. And that's a learned behavior if you have not been raised that way. It's a learned behavior when you're witnessing it to actually be like, hey, this is another atomic habit. I'm just going to take one day at a time and be a little bit more present. And I'm going to be okay with not having guilt because I am decided that.
I've even noticed that with friendships as well. Whenever I'm in the present moment with relationships that I'm in, they're so much deeper, so much more fulfilled. You're listening to them. And
you hear them.
You really hear them.
Hear them, their story, right? And instead of leaving there and going, I don't know really what we talked about.
I was so worried about what I needed to buy for groceries that I didn't even actually have a deep connection with this friend. And then you wasted already so much being left in the future of your anxiety brain.
Y'all, it comes down to just connecting with yourself, connecting with others, letting that love flow, bringing some peace within, bringing some peace without, sharing the peace, and then having joyful moments. Those three things on your growth mindset and the big areas of your life. You can even bring joy into your work, bring peace into your work, bring the love into your work. It's just a conscious, all-knowing, I should say effort, but really it can become our natural state. And that is our natural state when we let the ego go bye-bye and little Fifi is quiet and Coco starts like telling us that we need to think of the next 20 steps that need to take place before Friday. Write it down.
I was just about to say that whenever my brain is racing, I'll even tell the person that I'm with, hold on, I'm not in the present moment right now. I did this with you
yesterday. Done that, yeah.
She's like, hold on, give me just 2 minutes, Ashlyn. I want to feel this, be connected with you. I want to hear you. But I'm not going to be able to hear you because little Fifi's going off right now. And we just pull out our phone, we go to notes, and we just write it down. And I even do this before bed sometimes.
We have the brain dump journals. Like you have a brain dump journal, I have a brain dump journal. It's a game journal. And
you just
we
write
have
it down, and then your brain's not like focusing on it anymore because you're like, whenever it goes to it, it's like, oh, it's written down. It's okay.
You just tell your brain, hey, Fifi, be quiet because it's written down. And tomorrow, one thing that I've been implementing, I know this is going to be like this massively awesome podcast, but one of the things I've been implementing is going into the void at night. So I close my eyes and I think there's a black void because that's what you see. There's just blackness. I'm taking care of my body. I'm doing this loving thing. 4 things I'm grateful for. Maybe a little bit of self-reflection over the day. If I haven't journaled it, I just do self-reflection. And then I go into this void. I'm like, now it's time to sleep. I'm taking care of my body. My mind desires sleep. My body desires sleep. And it's time to rest. And so my spirit's laying me down to sleep. And I go into this void as if I'm going up into space. And I'm like, I'm so grateful for the beautiful dreams I'm going to have tonight. And for some reason, this has been working for me where I'm just all of a sudden like crashing out because things have been written down. I will say this, very, very honest about this. 2 days before my period, it is definitely the Fifi is like ignited. I feel like I'm lucid dreaming like a crazy monkey all night long. I have all these amazing ideas. I'm sitting there messaging like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
My phone's buzzing. Jerome's like, who is that? I'm like, it's Mom.
It's been like that since I was 15 years old. And so I used to really fight it and be upset about that happening. And now I just look at it like, listen, this is what's going to happen. It has for all these years. And I happen to be perfectly on the full moon. So it's bright outside and I am extremely tired on the 3rd day. And it's a cycle that I go through. And this is where I have stepped in with us doing the podcast with immense compassion for myself and understanding when Fifi is going like a rocket. And I'm like, hey, guess what? You got 3 hours of sleep last night. So it's okay that Fifi's showing up, but you don't have to listen to her. She's kind of being a silly goose. And it's become a much lighter load. And then by George, by the third or fourth night, I'm getting some good sleep. But I just know this is going to happen. That's the ego brain.
And I think too with Jerome, he has my cycle now that I'm pregnant, and I'm gonna have to have him hop back on another cycle thing. But he had an app on his phone that followed my cycle, and I would just say, "Hey, Jerome, as you know, my period's gonna start in about a week to about 3 days. I'm not really feeling in the mood to cook right now. I'm exhausted. I need rest." And those would be the days where he'd bring home Taco Bell. And so having those partners, especially men, I think we as women, it's the more we are able to communicate with them on these things, the more they're able to comprehend.
Right.
And as long as it's like a healthy relationship. And I told him these things, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, like get some rest." Even now being pregnant, he's like, "Sit your butt down."
Well, and I think for women too, I've worked with so many women that there is this kind of part of our brain that triggers off of like isolation around 2 days before, around our period time of just like either that or you're like wanting to run. I'm going to get in my car because everybody's irritated me and I'm going to go to a whole other island and on a boat. I'm going to get on the ship and whatever.
I'm done.
And I'm done with this whole thing. And it's just recognizing that yes, we were blessed with lovely hormones and having compassion, love, but communicating, like Ashlyn said, with your loved ones around you.
Yeah.
Like you'll witness like with your pet, all of a sudden you're a little bit more sure. Why are you barking all the time or whatever?
And everything freaking come back down to journaling as well.
Yeah,
journal these things out.
I started.
How you feel on
that's how
cycle.
I learned. Mm-hmm. That's how I started to witness. Okay, ovulation times. It's all different, and
to know yourself.
What eating too. This is the holistic coach in me, but just witnessing like how you eat, and then not being hard on yourself. I have clients where I'm like, okay, are you recognizing that on the 15th of this month, this is when you get extra cravings, and and this is how you can eat. And they're like, oh my gosh. I said, yeah, because you've kept track of it. Now you see this. And now we're not going to do the beat up game. Your hormones are actually desiring these certain like foods. Oh,
Fifi's going to come out the cake.
And it's going to be okay. And they're like, they said, well, this is actually making it fun. And I don't have this guilt and shame. And I said, guess who releases all this extra weight? And now it feels normal because they were beating themselves up for a full week and a half because of what happened during that little 3-day stint. There's a lot in this episode, but you can listen to the same thing as your girlfriend, but it might be 6 months later that you actually have it land and understand, and like it's meant to be perfectly in your life then. I've had so many of these self-help books with coaching and doing different things. I had Edgar Tolle's book probably 3 or 4 years before I even opened it up.
Book, the Running with the Wolves book, my friend that gave me that book, she's like, I told her, I'm like, Mom, this book is so amazing, read it. And she's like, okay, I'm going to order it on Amazon. And then you're like, wait, I actually have this book.
And I've had it forever. And so I just hadn't opened it. So it's like the perfect timing. The more you become and know yourself intuitively, the more you love yourself and stop the judgment we've talked about in the last podcast. It's just action each day, little things, just the little things, you guys. So
I know. I think me and you were just always trying to eat the whole cookie or the whole cake, and
we wanted it done. We're destination girls. We wanted like, hey, I'm going to Hawaii. That's my destination.
Give me my trip to Bali.
And we're going to these destinations. We wanted things complete, and it was such a hard wire in our brain to finish the college degree, finish the class in college. We've been so programmed for different things, and I really have had to break up with that version in my brain of Fifi because it's ever evolving. Sometimes I really have to say to myself, Janae, this is hilarious that you think that you're going to have this one complete at any time, and you do have to laugh. And Ash and I have started laughing.
Oh, so much more. I love it.
I was like the Joker growing up. Even in college, I was laughing all the time.
Too. I was like, Mom, we're actually like really funny. Like we're so funny. Like this was the day after I peed my pants with us doing our commercial with our laughter. we almost couldn't finish the commercial. And I called her and I'm like, Mom, we're actually really fucking funny. And I don't know why we've been doing this whole time, because you had me rolling and peeing in my pants and we just couldn't even, And when you step back and you really find your fun, authentic self and just start owning it.
Remember that girl. Remember that guy.
Your 8-year-old self that was giggling at just
Yes.
fart noises. My toddlers brought that back to me.
Right. We were not overthinking these things at 3 and 4 and 5 years old. And so just letting that come back into your life if you don't have it.
Yeah.
And just like, I used to say to myself, oh my gosh, I don't take life so seriously. And I really did that even when I moved up here 4 years ago. And I was like, don't take these so seriously. But then at some place, it's like, maybe you probably should take this a little bit more seriously. Maybe you should really notice this. Ding, ding, ding on Amazon.
Maybe I should be noticing what's going on with this relationship and my bank account and this. Because that's what I mentioned, but in the very beginning, don't numb out with self-healing. Those are things that we do. And even with manifesting, of always thinking it's going to come around. But if you are not honoring where you are at and not feeling where you're at, it can knock you down in the future.
So yes, we would like to ask you, what was the last book or episodes and different things that you've listened to or read that you actually followed through with and felt like, this helped me? Or do you feel like you have started several books, but something inside you, which would be probably like the dark shadow working part, that makes you feel like you can't finish it? And for me, when I walk through that, I just said, Janae, # excuses. Why is this showing up that you're having excuses? Because there was one book out there, Ashlyn and I, it was a big book, 7 weeks worth of daily things.
Yeah.
It's called Calling in the One, but it's really calling in yourself. And I was witnessing how my heart was aching in certain chapters. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to stay here for a second. This is something that I have a belief system in that I need to get rid of. And it was beautiful witnessing. And I know that that's probably a book that you would say that a lot of people will start to get involved with, and then maybe not finish that one, right?
It becomes too much. It's something that sometimes they'll open up and be like, oh, I don't need to call in the one. And I'm like, but you maybe need to read the full book and realize that calling in the one is actually self-love within yourself.
It's calling in you. It's calling in
your true self and
authentic.
And finding out that, and it's something I realized even starting my relationship with Jerome, that you attract what you are. So if you are saying certain things about men or women, you're going to draw that person in. So I know certain people that say, oh, men are this and women are this. And then they draw in that specific person. And I'm like, you can't look at all men and all women the same, or even, even just friendships. I used to think, oh, well, all my friendships will just end up ending,
Right.
So if you have that perspective, you're going to draw it in. You're a magnet.
So one of the things on the body embodiment and soma is that maybe you feel like all men are this way or all women are this way. So you can put your hands back behind you and shake it like you're erasing your past. You're like leaving it in your past. And then you put your hands up in the middle where your third eye is. And you say, actually, there are so many amazing men out there that are, and whatever you want.
Me,
I feel safe with. Their integrity is out of this world, and whatever you want. And then you're teaching your brain, and it will start to do this image in your brain, like when something comes up that you're literally having this, it's in my past, because otherwise we're pulling what here up to be our for sure thing. So no, it's in my past. You just shake it.
Didn't you just put the freaking frosting on the cupcake right there?
There you go.
That was like the cherry on top.
This is what you want. This is what you're bringing in.
That literally like alternates your brain. It's very true.
It does. It's therapeutic. They use it. And once you start to do it, you'll start to witness. This is an action step if you choose to. You're always free to choose to do or not do. But you can do it in a meditative state where you're just shaking your hands, laying on your bed or whatever, and just going back and forth like, that is not my truth anymore.
Shaking is so therapeutic.
Yeah,
too.
That's not my truth. It's behind me. And I just think of it as a whiteboard. I've learned from it, but I don't need to keep on holding on to it as if I want to bring it forward and have that another experience. And then
it's like
touch
releasing
here.
those chains.
Yeah, you're just releasing, you're shaking it off, and then bring your hand forward and say, actually, how would it be if I chose this? And your brain's like, well, let me see. How would it be? Oh my gosh, it might be kind of amazing. You're asking the question, God, how is it that so many amazing, loving, kind people show up in my life and I get to have these beautiful connections? How would it be? That's the way you talk. And then your brain's like, well, how would it be?
And I've been doing this with money.
Yes.
When it, like, visualizing, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be so freaking amazing if, this came to me, or this amount of money came to me. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be money. Maybe it's experiences that you've been wanting to experience.
Your brain is on demand to answer questions. So how would it be? What would it be like to have so much money? Or whatever you're desiring, whatever you're wanting to bring into your life. Just even, I think for a lot of people, it's just having more than enough money, right?
Freedom.
The freedom that you feel, the security that you feel. So you're going into those emotions, but asking the question is the how, or the, like, God, how is it that I have so much, and calling it in as if it's there. It's more powerful than information.
I love that.
It's part of spiritual fitness.
I think that was like a beautiful way to end this.
Yeah, we'll end it here.
If you made it this far, that was an amazing tip. And if you didn't, I don't know what to say.
We seem to leave a lot of awesome tips at the end. So for all those people.
I know, seriously. I was just thinking that too. I was like, I go through our podcast and I'm like, wow.
Like, somehow it just starts really flowing in the magic in the middle to the end, big time. So much love from our home to yours.
Be sure to comment, subscribe, heart, love, and share this with somebody that you feel like might need this in this moment.
Yeah, if it speaks to your heart.